And today the story is Giant Grummer's Christmas by William Dana Street. Here's Giant Grummer. This is his house with some kids running away holding their nose. Here is one kid in particular. Here he is with Santa. Here's Santa in the giant's house. Here's the giant happily sleeping. And I will set my phone down and we'll begin the story. Giant Grummer's Christmas by William Dana Street. Giant Grummer was a very bad giant. He never kept Christmas. Sometimes on Christmas Day he would sit all day in his huge castle eating pickles and drinking vinegar. Christmas was a very sour day for Giant Grummer. Just to think of so many people being happy gave him a headache. He was a very bad giant. Giant Grummer lives in a castle all made of Limburger cheese. Now, Limburger cheese smells the strongest of all cheeses. No one in the village could come within a mile of the castle without being overcome. But Giant Grummer loved Limburger cheese. He loved it so much that he kept eating away great chunks of the castle towers and walls. One Christmas, Giant Grummer was worse than he had ever been. He said that he was going over the village on Christmas Eve after Santa Claus had been there, and reach his long arm down every chimney. He said he was going to grab all the stockings around the fireplace with all the presents in them. Then he was going to carry them over to his castle, spread them out on the floor, and stamp on them until they were broken to pieces. The villagers were terribly worried when they heard this. What should they do? Now there was a prince in the village, and his name was Topsy-Turvy. He was only a little boy, but he was not at all afraid of the giant, nor of his castle, all made of Limburger cheese. For Topsy had found out that if he turned his nose around upside down, everything smelled just the opposite from what it usually did. Cologne smelled like castor oil, and Limburger cheese smelled like cookies and gingerbread. When Topsy heard that Giant Grummer was planning to steal all of the children's Christmas presents, he went right to the telephone and called up Santa Claus. They had a long talk together and made a wonderful plan. Now, Giant Grummer had never hung up his stocking on Christmas, or at Christmas. Not even when he was a little boy. His mother had told him that she didn't believe in Santa Claus. But the fact was that Santa Claus knew that the smell of Limburger Castle would make his reindeer deathly sick, so he never tried to go there. First of all, then, Giant Grummer received a very nice letter from Santa Claus that said, "Dear Giant Grummer, why don't you hang up your stocking on Christmas Eve? I have some very nice presents which I would like to put into it. This would be much more fun than stealing the children's presents. Your good friend, Santa Claus."
Ho, ho, said Giant Grummer. Ho, ho. Oh, fool Santa Claus. I'll hang up my biggest stocking and I'll watch him fill it. Then I'll dump the presents all on the floor, and I'll still have time to go over to the village and snatch all the children's presents. He rubbed his hands and stamped his feet. Giant Grummer was a very bad giant. So on Christmas Eve, Giant Grummer came into the big living room of the castle and hung up his great big stocking in front of the fireplace. Then he went to bed and lay very still. He tried to stay awake and watch for Santa Claus, but the first thing you know, he was fast asleep and never saw Santa Claus at all. At midnight, Prince Topsy-Turvy met Santa Claus in the village.
"How shall I even dare to drive to Limburger Castle?"
asked Santa Claus. "I'll show you," Topsy answered. Then he turned Santa's nose upside down, and they both turned around the noses of the 8 reindeer. Topsy jumped into the sleigh with Santa Claus, and they started for the castle of Giant Grummer. Faster and faster they went, for now Limburger Castle smelt like cookies and gingerbread, and all the reindeer were very fond of cookies and gingerbread. On they went right up onto the roof of the castle. Down the chimney went Santa Claus. When Santa Claus saw the huge stocking, he drew a long breath. But at once he began to try to fill it. First, he put in a real automobile. Then he put in a big iron horn. And then a whole lot of candy and cookies and gingerbread. Then, last of all, Santa pulled out of his pack a great many round cheeses. They were the very oldest and strongest smelling Limburger cheese. They were just awful. Santa Claus put these big cheeses on top of the stocking. Then he went up the chimney and drove away. Soon it was morning. Before daylight, Giant Grummer came trooping into the room to look at his stocking. As soon as Giant Grummer found the big cheeses, he did not look for anything else. He just sat down on the floor and began to eat them. He ate up 2 whole cheeses. When he tried to eat the third, he could not go on. He was just too full. His eyes began to close. Soon he was fast asleep. Giant Grummer slept all through Christmas morning, and Christmas afternoon, and Christmas evening, and that is the reason why Giant Grummer was good all day on Christmas. He was asleep. The end.